everybody, welcome back. My name is Danny Taylor and today I'm going to be giving you 10 fat loss tips for vegans.
Really, it's for anybody, but if you're watching this, you're probably vegan.
So this video is actually going to be a condensed version of one of our episodes of our podcast, Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. So if you want to hear an expanded version of this, be sure to check that out and I will leave it in the link below. One more thing before we dive in, if you want to check out our new free 5-ingredient healthy and delicious vegan recipe cookbook, totally free, click the link down below. You can get yours today. So far, people are loving it. All right, jumping right in, here are 10 tips to help you with your fat loss journey. Tip number 1 is give yourself enough time. One of the things that I see all the time is people want to lose 20 pounds by the end of the month, or they have a deadline or a vacation or a wedding that they want to go to, and they have very unrealistic expectations of how much weight they're going to be able to lose in that time. So when you don't give yourself enough time, one of two things is going to happen. 1, you're not going to reach your goal and you're going to be very disappointed. 2, you might reach your scale weight goal, but in order to do that, you might have had to lose weight so quickly that you sacrificed lean muscle tissue, which you definitely don't want to do. You work way too hard for that. It's very hard to build back. Losing muscle slows down your metabolism. This is a lose, lose, lose situation. So be sure to give yourself enough time. Aim to lose about 1% of your body weight per week and work backwards from your goal. Tip number 2 is track your food accurately. Study after study has shown that people are consuming more food than they think they are consuming. So whether this is using an app like MyFitnessPal or Chronometer, using an Excel spreadsheet, or a good old-fashioned pen and paper, write down what you're eating. It could be very eye-opening for you, and there's a lot that you can learn that way. You may find out that you don't need to eat as little as you thought you needed to in order to lose weight, or you may find out that you are actually eating significantly more than you thought you were eating. But this is a huge exercise in learning about yourself, and as they say, you cannot manage what you do not measure, so track your food. Tip number 3, be sure to hydrate well. We've all heard this for as long as we can remember, that it's very easy to confuse thirst for hunger, and a lot of times we eat when what we really need to do is get some more hydration in. So make sure you're drinking enough water, keeping your fluids in a good place. Also, a hydrated body is going to be much more efficient at burning fat than a dehydrated body. So as a general rule, by the time you feel thirsty, you're already a little bit dehydrated. So I like to take body weight, cut it in half, and shoot for that many ounces of water per day. So I'm 140 pounds, so that's 70 ounces of water per day for me. Tip number 4 is be sure to fuel your workouts well. By definition, when you're trying to lose body fat, you're going to need to be in a caloric deficit. And anytime we're in a caloric deficit for an extended period of time, your workouts are going to start to suffer a little bit, and we want to make this as small as possible. So making sure that you are eating substantial carbohydrates, fats, proteins before your workout, and carbohydrates and proteins after your workout is going to keep your performance high, which is going to help you maintain as much muscle as possible and make it so that what you are losing is predominantly fat. So a lot of people think that they need to train in a fasted state to lose body fat. There is zero evidence to support this theory, and in fact, it can and likely will make your performance suffer. So be sure to have a substantial pre-workout and post-workout meal to make sure that you're optimizing your workouts so that you can have the most efficient fat loss possible. Tip number 5 is get into an eating routine. If you look at some of the top level athletes in the world, they are eating in a very routine manner every single day. This doesn't mean you have to eat the same thing every single day, but you do want to be eating at roughly the same times every day. You don't want to be skipping breakfast one day and pushing lunch off till 5 p.m. the next day. When you get into an eating routine, your body is going to start to be ready for that food at that time. You're going to start to get hungry for it for that time, and you're going to burn through it efficiently by the time you get to the next meal. And it's going to be so much easier to track your food. It's going to be so much easier for you to regulate your hunger in this manner, and everything is just going to move much more smoothly when you get into an eating routine. Tip number 6 is set your protein high enough. I know this is a bit controversial in the vegan community because so many vegans have just had
Where do you get your protein?
crammed down their throat that they're almost anti-protein at a certain point where they think they don't need to worry about protein at all. And while it's true, unless you are severely under-eating your calories, You are not going to suffer a protein deficiency, that is true, but we're not trying to just not suffer a deficiency. We're not trying to just survive, we're trying to thrive. And if you want to maintain your muscle or maybe even build a little bit of muscle while you are on this fat loss journey, you're gonna wanna make sure that your protein is set high enough. Like I mentioned earlier, just by being in a fat loss phase or having a fat loss goal, you need to be in a caloric deficit. So it's really easy, if you're not paying attention, for the amount of protein you're eating to decrease significantly as your calories decrease. You definitely don't want this to happen, otherwise we're right back at the beginning where I talked about losing your muscle. Muscle is precious and very hard to build. You do not want to lose it. So how much protein do you eat? This is going to vary depending on who you ask. You should always try different things out for yourself and see how they feel. But in general, I usually recommend 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of your lean body mass. This is really easy to do on a vegan diet, eating things like tempeh, tofu, seitan, protein powders if they're convenient for you, and certain mock meats along with lentils, spinach, kale, nutritional yeast. All of those things can add up, but you do need to keep an eye on it. So you should also track your food, which was number 2. You see how these all go together, guys? Tip number 7 is to load up on non-starchy vegetables. This seems like it should be a no-brainer, but a lot of times I see people who are trying to lose weight or lose body fat and they are hungry frequently because they're sort of spending all of their calories or their macros on these really dense foods, which will be the next tip. One of the easiest, highest volume, lowest calorie, loaded with fiber and micronutrient things that you could eat is non-starchy vegetables. Broccoli, kale, spinach, green beans, asparagus, zucchini, summer squash. Load your plates up with these things and you are gonna feel much fuller, much more satisfied. You're gonna have higher fiber, higher micronutrient consumption. You're gonna just feel so much better. Which leads me to my next tip, number 8. Look for higher volume foods to reach your calorie or macronutrient goals. So a good example that I will use is brown rice. Brown rice is a super healthy food. We all know that. There's lots of great things about brown rice, but it's pretty dense calorically, meaning you get a pretty small amount of it compared to, for example, like a spaghetti squash where you would get much, much more. Or another good example would be sweet potatoes are actually significantly calorically more dense than white potatoes, which are calorically more dense than butternut squash, which is calorically more dense than spaghetti squash. So as you kind of work your way up the food volume scale, again, this is just going to allow you to feel less hungry. And anytime you're in a fat loss or a weight loss phase, a little bit of hunger is normal, but there's no need to suffer for the sake of suffering. So loading up on really high calorie, dense foods to reach your goals is going to leave your stomach much more physically empty. So look for higher volume foods and you're going to feel much more satisfied by the end of the day. Tip number 9 is to refeed properly. So a lot of people think that when you need to lose weight or you're trying to lose fat, you just need a crash diet and you go all the way down and you cut your calories week after week after week until you get to where you're going. And yes, you can do that, but there is very likely to be metabolic ramifications of that. Your body doesn't like to be in a diet. It doesn't care that you want abs. Your body thinks you're a starving caveman, and what it does is it slows your metabolism and a lot of the functions that happen in your body down as a way to preserve it and keep you alive. So yay, you would live for a very long time if you were a caveman, but in reality, your digestion is slowing down, your core temperature is lowering a little bit, your hormones are probably shifting. When we talk about metabolic downregulation, this is what we're talking about. And when you're in a caloric deficit for too long, it happens. So what do? Have a couple of days per week that are higher in calories. Not crazy high, not out of control.
I'm just gonna have a cheat day and eat whatever I want.
But a controlled level where you're eating like around your maintenance calories for a few days, where you're just not in a deficit. And this is going to help to mitigate some of those metabolic changes that happen in a pretty short period of time. Also, it gives you a little something to look forward to. So I like to have my refeed days on the weekend. It makes it much easier to stick to my deficit Monday through Friday when I know that come Saturday and Sunday, I'm gonna have a little bit more wiggle room. So refeeding is a really important strategy to implement when you have long-term weight loss or fat loss goals. And tip number 10 is to reevaluate regularly. as your body changes, its needs are going to change. You need to take a look at the kind of progress you're making. Is it too slow? Is it too fast? Yes, your progress can be too fast, like we talked about with number 1. Do your calories need to be higher? Do they need to be lower? Could you maybe change up the amount of exercise you're doing? Could you go on more walks? Readjusting what you're doing frequently is going to make sure that you keep moving forward at the pace that you want to be. And hopefully when you get to your goal, you can also maintain it indefinitely. That's the ultimate goal. So again, if you guys want to hear this video, but stretched out into an hour with a lot more of the science behind it, be sure to check out that episode of Muscles by Brussels Radio. Feel free to join our Facebook group where we talk about these sorts of things in the comments there with lots of other cool, like-minded people. And lastly, if you haven't downloaded the 5-ingredient vegan macro-friendly cookbook for free, that is in the link down below. Check it out. Hope you like it. Let us know if you have thoughts about this. Leave a comment down below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, all the stuff I'm supposed to tell you to do at the end of a video. And if you have any questions, please reach out. We really love hearing from you guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.